Welcome to Shomach Shova and the Daf. She responds to Nishmas Arbi Yaakov and Leabas Yitzchok. We're holding Basra Daf from base. The Gemara Amud base at the top of the Amud concludes the sugya regarding the Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Who needs to bring a raya when there's one brother taking care of the documents? And Shmuel says that according to Rav, if he dies, so then Rav agrees that the kids don't have to bring a raya. The Gemara brings a raya from Dvarim Asuyim Lahashul Lahaskir, and the Gemara concludes and says Kashya. It's a question. So the Rishbam over here brings a fascinating discussion regarding what do we do with the word Kashya. He brings a Rein Chanan that says that in general in Shas there's a difference between Tiyuvta and Kashya. If you have a Tiyuvta, that means it's a question with no answer. And it's a pircha. We said whatever you said is not true. But if it says Kashya, Kashya means it's not a pircha, it's a question. And if we work hard, we'll get to an answer. But right now we don't have an answer. And the Dvarim, it's not a pircha, you still conclude this point l'halacha. The Rishbam himself argues, and he says no, there's no difference between Tiyuvta and Kashya. But if you bring a question from a Mishnah or a Braiso, there you say Tiyuvta. If you bring a question from a Rayim, then you say Kashya. But if it says Kashya, it's also a pircha, and therefore we doichet from halacha. So you have here a fundamental discussion. Is the word Kashya a complete pircha or not? Rav Kivegi here in the Gilyon Shas sends to a few places in Shas, where most of these places seem to be that the word Kashya is not a pircha. He quotes the Rashi and Sanhedrin Daf Ayin Beis Amud Aleph. There the Gemara also concludes a sugya and says Kashya. And Rashi says over there, Kashya masnis the terutza liba de Rav. When we go to you, lo yahave, the lav behed diktani, and goes to explain why it's not a complete tiyuvta. And it concludes and says, v'hainu deiko ben kushya tiyuvta. And Masha Rashi is saying, first of all, that that's the rule always, the difference between kushya and tiyuvta is it a pircha or not? And there we're speaking about a question from a Mishnah, and we're using the word kashya. According to the Rashbam, there you have to use tiyuvta. That's what Rav Kivegi is pointing out. And this goes on also in Rashi, come on, there in Sanhedrin, Nafkuf Yud Beis. Then the Gemara brings a question from a pasuk, and the Gemara concludes with Kashya. Says Rashi there, Lo shel pasuk Kashya letaretz, but avaloi misusov. It's not a tiyuvta. Says the Be'er Sheva there in the spot. L'chor, that's a pircha to the Rashbam. According to the Rashbam, every time you learn from a Mishnah or a Brisa, Kol shekad from a pasuk, you say tiyuvta. Only from a Meroim you say Kashya. Here you bring a question from a pasuk, and it says Kashya. So the Chur Raya brought to Rabbeinu Chanana. Another marker to this is the Rashbam himself, the Chur seems to be contradicting himself. Because the Gemara, like come on, in Basra, the Kuf Chav Zayin, the Gemara brings a question from a Brisa. And the Gemara brings a question according to Rav Shavia and according to Rav Shizvi. The Gemara says like this, Tiyuvta or Rav Shavia or Tiyuvta? So the Gemara, maybe it's Tiyuvta or Rav Shizvi as well. Says the Gemara, Kashya. It's not a tiyuvta, it's only a kasha. Says the Rashba on the spot, kasha abal tiyuvta mamish eino. It's not a tiyuvta. He goes to explain why not. So there clearly in the Gemara you see the chiluk between tiyuvta and kasha. We speak about a mishnah or brisa. According to the Rashba, the Chor, every time you speak about mishnah and brisa, should be tiyuvta. Every time you speak about amurim, should be kasha. And that's a question of the pilpulo charifta there in Avkul Chav Zayin. He goes on to speak about it, the shita of the Rosh, the shita of the Rambam, when you have kasha, when you have tiyuvta. So he says, l'chor, it's a stira in the Rashbam. The Rashbam says the Mishnah Bryce is a tiyuvta. That's what the people charivta and many of the Rishonim ask on the Rashbam. Comes the Noida B'Yehudo, Yeridea Madur Tanina Siman Kuf Samech Gimel. And he says, no, Pshat the Rashbam is as follows. The Rashbam also agrees there's a difference between Kashya and tiyuvta, but only when you're bringing a question for a Mishnah or a Bryce. Meaning, when you bring a question for a Moira, you use the Lashon Kashya. You don't use Losha Tiyuvta. And Kashya is enough to tell you that it's a pircha. But when you bring a question from a Mishnah or a Braiso, so then, if it's a pircha, you say Tiyuvta. If it's not a pircha, you say Kashya. You could say Tiyuvta. If you didn't say Tiyuvta and you chose to say Kashya, then it means it's not a pircha. So you mean that's the Rashbam, you answer the Rashbam Daf Kuf Chav Zayin. Because they were bringing a question from a Braiso. So we say according to one Adom it's a Tiyuvta, according to the other one it's not Tiyuvta, it's only a Kashya. That also answers the question from Rashi and Sanhedrin. Because the Rashi Sanhedrin brings a raya from a pasuk. And he says we say Kashya, not Tiyuvta, because it's not such a big question. But if you bring a question from a Moira, Kashya could be a Pircha. That's what you can explain the Rashbam. Just as Kedai to be Mitzayin. There's the Rishaya Pik, the one who wrote that Sionim and Shas. He has a sefer called Kshus Miyushov. And the whole sefer is coming to answer all the Kashyas and Shas, based on the Rabbeinu Chanan in this Rashbam. Because once we said the Kashya means it's not a Pircha, so let's come and answer all the Kashyas and Shas. He has a whole sefer based on this Rashbam. And one last thing we conclude, that the Ramchal and Adi Bamarim says, it's based on the Arizal, that whenever there's a question that we have, it is the Sitra Achro that makes learning unclear. And therefore, sometimes you have questions you have an answer to. A person has to break his head to come and have an answer. That's his gab Sitra Achro. In some places, Sitra Achro makes things so dark, you can't answer the question. You're stuck with the Tiyuvta. That's the definition of questions we have in Hilchasal according to Kabbalah. Anyone who wants to join the Shomachshava email list, what's a group, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.